And then I ended up going to prison, spending I was in there for a whole entire year before I even got sentenced. You know, you get,
wow.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. And here's the thing. In America, you get your first phone call the night of. My first phone call was after 1 year.
What?
1 year.
So what was all your friends and family thinking?
Some people thought I died. It took about a month for my mom to find out.
And how did she find out?
Because they were processing all this by the consulate. They were processing all this paperwork and everything. And it took about a month, and my mom was just so worried because the consulate had to come in first, then they had to contact my mom, and any letter that I wrote, I'd write a letter, they have to screen it, then they have to decode my letter, and then it would take 2 months to get to America.
Oh my gosh.
And 2 months to come back. I wrote over 100 letters to friends, and only 5 people wrote me back. And that's when I learned nobody's going to save me. I got to save myself.
And those 5 people, I assume, are still in your life today.
Yeah, it's my daughter's mother, Laura, my boy Troy, my brother, my mom, and just a few members of my family.
Yeah, I guess going to jail really shows you who your real friends are.
Oh, and a friend of mine, Lexi. Yeah, it was crazy. Like, no one wrote me back. And I was like, all right, I see what it is. But I have to keep my mind occupied. And that's when I start reading and reading and reading and reading. And then I got that book, The Power of Positive Thinking. So I got the book, The Power of Positive Thinking, and I'm reading and reading and over and over and over and over and over. I get sentenced. They sentenced me till 2014, and that was back in 2002. I mean, 2003. So they gave me a 12-year sentence. So in my head, I'm not getting out. My life is over. My daughter was a year at the time. I'm not going to see her until she's grown. My business manager at the time stole all my money, and my one piece of pride was I could still pay child support while I was in prison, and she stole all my money. And bro, it was crazy. It was so difficult. And my thing was, how can I occupy my mind? I've got to occupy my mind. The best thing to do was read, memorize my dreams. And as I started reading The Power of Positive Thinking, again, remember, I read Power of Positive Thinking before.
Right.
Then I stopped reading Power of Positive Thinking. Then all this weird stuff happens, but I'm not aware. Then I start reading The Power of Positive Thinking again. Mind you, I'm not planning on getting out. When I read that book, and it talks about a lot of, this is like a biblical principles, forgiveness, letting go of your pride and ego, being nice to people, being generous and things like that, praying every night. I really wasn't aware of exactly what I was reading, but it seems like every time I read that book, it's like my brain would just be more peaceful and calm. And then I remembered that I love to run. I remembered that I love art, painting. I remembered that I love singing. So an inmate he was in another cell. Every time you sing, it makes me feel free. So I just started singing to bring joy to somebody else. But it made me feel better. And I would draw other people's portraits of their family. They were crying. They were like, do you want anything? I'm like, nah. Because I get such joy from taking something that I love and giving it away to people and bringing joy to their lives. Then they have this thing called promenade. That's where you walk around in the circle. In America, they call it the yard. There are stabbings, fightings, drug deals happening all the time. And I have this little voice that says, run. You love to run. Nobody's running. So one day, I decided to run because I love to run. Then all of a sudden, within a month, damn near 90% of the people were running with me.
Wow, just in a circle in the courtyard?
for an entire hour. It's 1 hour in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. Boom, for an entire hour. Everybody was getting all fit and stuff. It was crazy. And I didn't realize what was happening. Then the sergeant guy brought me to the office. He said, "Thank you for what you," of course it was in like French, because I could speak damn near fluent French. So the sergeant guy brought me in and said, not sergeant, but they call him the surveillant. I don't know what the equivalent that is. The main person said, "Thank you, because ever since you've been running, there's been less fights, less drug deals, less stabbings." And interestingly enough, I was watching Shawshank Redemption, and Tim Robbins is a movie that's based on prison, so it was like real life.
One of the best.
He said, "They can take everything they want away from me, but they can't take away from my mind. They can't take away my mind." And then something hit me. Well, as long as I'm doing everything I love, then I'll be free. Oh, I knew in that moment why I was in prison. Because when I was out, free, quote unquote, I felt like I said, I feel like I'm so far away from where I'm supposed to be. I feel like I'm in prison inside of my own body. I used to say that every day. And guess what? I manifested being in a whole nother country in prison. So when I was in there, and I was like, you know what? Your physical space does not determine your mental space. So just because I'm in the physical space called prison doesn't mean that I can't be free in my mind. In that moment, I said, well, then I'm free because I'm doing everything that I love. I'm singing, I'm doing my art, I'm running, I'm being active. When I run, I always feel free. Every time. I don't run for exercise. I run because it's like a spiritual awakening for me.
Right.
And it just happens to be exercise. But so when I started saying, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, I'm a free man because I'm doing everything that I love. I didn't do that out there. Doing everything that I love. When I became the characteristics of the embodiment of a free man, Jones, you're getting out next week.
Yeah, so that's one of the craziest parts about your story because you said after you were in there for about 2 years, correct?
2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Yeah.
And then they went and tested the heroin.
So I don't even know why they retested the drugs. So they had already tested it 3 times, 6.2 kilos of heroin every time. And then all of a sudden, I start acting free, loving my life, regardless, for everyone out there, loving my life, regardless of my current circumstance, regardless, and doing everything that sparks joy to my life and bringing joy to other people. When I became the essence of freedom, out of nowhere, they retested the drugs and said, Jones, you're free to go home. The drugs were fake. And not 100%. It was like, for the amount that was in there, you've already done the time.
Wow, okay.
Everything else is fake. You're free to go.
Wow.
Now, if you ask me, connecting the dots, looking backwards, when you think about how a woman gives birth. Woman gives birth, seed is that she's impregnated. Then all of a sudden, the baby grows inside of the womb. When the baby gets too big for the womb, what once grew on the inside is now produced in the next realm, is now produced outside. That's its next level. Boom. I feel that because I was seeing myself as free and loving myself and bringing joy to other people, that my container for value started filling up and filling up and filling up and filling up. And then it started to overflow into the next container. Well, if I took a cup right now and then I poured water in it and it overflowed, then it would overflow into your room. But if I kept pouring, it would overflow the room because it's too big for the space. And then it would go into the next room. Boom. So my container of value, I poured into myself. It overflowed into the prison. I strongly feel, connecting the dots looking backwards, that the value was too big for prison. And what once grew on the inside like the baby was now the free man, Garrain, produced in the next realm called freedom.